being a parent is hard enough, but try adding adult children, grandparents, and maybe grandkids to the mix. Dr. Annie Abram is a psychotherapist with more than 25 years clinical experience. She also has her own show on Blog Talk Radio. Dr. Abram is here to talk about the unique role of grandparents. Lots of folks live collectively as extended families these days, whether for financial reasons or otherwise. So what kind of challenges do you see now that maybe you didn't see 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, obviously, living together is very different than visiting a grandparent. So there are lots of conflicts that evolve between the adult children and the grandparents. And this primarily has to do with different parenting styles. The grandparents parented in an authoritative way, and their children are parenting in a more democratic way. So the grandparents say, you know, why don't you just say, Johnny, do this, rather than, Johnny, what would you like to do, A or B? So there's a lot of conflict about that, about what good parenting is.
I was going to guess that a lot of this conflict, if three generations are living together, are about how the older two affect and handle with the youngest.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The holidays are coming up. I should point that out because even though a lot of people don't live together, there's the visiting too, so that amps up the tension a notch every now and then, doesn't it?
You know, that amps up the tension incredibly. You know, going to see grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles, whatever. But there are a lot of people there and their family, and you know, we all want to have good relationships.
Sure.
But very often we don't have good relationships. So there, the whole family is together, and what do? You try to get along. And one tip that I have for grandparents is to bite your tongue.
Really?
Don't say it. Think before you speak. Because so very frequently it's not worth saying.
So we have it on the screen there. Is that tying into, well, you bite your tongue, that's the second one. The parent is always right? In other words, they have the final say, right?
Right. The parent is the person with authority in terms of parenting their own children. And so although the grandparents can be very close to the grandchild, it's not their primary responsibility to parent the child, to discipline the child.
Now,
so,
it seems
for example.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it seems that might even be a difficult balance because that third one was to address a concern as it comes up, but bite your tongue. So how do you do both?
Okay. I think that, first of all, you always bite your tongue and then think about it,
The less said, the better at first.
The less
anyway,
said,
right?
the better.
Yeah.
However, if this problem continues to haunt you, it's very important that you sit down with your adult child and try to find a way to talk about it. Because if you don't, of course, resentments build up. And that can result in estrangement, which is very, very upsetting and painful for everyone.
And talk, if you will, a little bit about how grandparents' roles have changed, too, because you were talking a little bit about how the styles have changed across generations, but how have the roles differed a bit, maybe in the last couple of decades?
Well, the grandparenting is really being redefined in the 21st century for two reasons. One has to do with people living longer, healthier lives, and therefore having more time to spend with their children. So the average age for a grandparent, if you can believe this, is 48. And our lifespan is 78. Or 80 perhaps now, given the latest statistics. Yes. So that's a lot of years, right?
You should be dispensing advice to great and great-great-grandparents, I think, too, right?
Exactly. You know, if I were here 5 years later, I probably would be.
How about that? By the way, there's a second screen that we have of things that you want people to know about. Can you talk about these, setting clear boundaries?
Okay. Setting clear boundaries is important in all relationships. And it's sometimes very difficult to say no to someone you love. So if an adult child is asking their parent, your child's grandparent, to babysit twice a week, and the grandparent has her life and she doesn't want to do it, if she goes along with it, she's going to resent this situation.
That can build up over time, can't it?
It can build up over time. However, if she lays down the law and she says, you know how much I love you and want to be with you, but I have my own life, and I would be happy to do it once a week, but I really can't do it twice a week. So if you lay down boundaries early on in the relationship, it's very helpful to everyone.
And what was the second one that we had up there? Can we put that back up there, Sue? Follow your grandchild's lead.
Follow your grandchild's lead is a way of getting to know your grandchild and to get into your grandchild's world. If you like the opera, don't expect your grandchild to like the opera and want to go with you. But if her interest is soccer, enter her world, get to know something about soccer, know the rules and regulations, understand her position, go to her games. And when she sees you taking an interest in her in that way, she's going to begin to take an interest in you as well. And a relationship has a much better chance of developing.
And I noticed we have to finish up now, but you notice that last comment was that the grandparents' role and place in that life can be reparative. Meaning
Reparative, right. Yes. In other words, as a parent, you see your children go through different developmental phases. And perhaps there's something in your own background that didn't go as well as you would have liked it to go. So when your child goes through that developmental phase, you are reminded of what life was like for you then. And you do something differently than your parents did. Wow. So that's reparative for you, and it's helpful for the child as well.